Welcome back, everyone. Before we dive in, make sure you drop your thoughts and the lessons you took from this story in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's get into it. My girlfriend said, "I can walk away. Men are begging for me." She expected me to panic. Instead, I replied, "Great. There is the exit." What started as another one of Aaliyah's manipulation tactics became the moment I finally learned my worth. I am Malcolm, 29, a mechanical engineer living in Denver with what I thought was the woman I would eventually marry. I met Aaliyah 2 years ago at a coffee shop downtown where she was photographing her latte for her social media, and I was immediately drawn to her confidence and creativity. She worked as a freelance social media manager, helping local businesses build their online presence, though her income fluctuated wildly depending on whether sponsorships came through. We moved in together after 8 months to a nice downtown loft that I could afford on my engineering salary. And for a while, everything seemed perfect. Somewhere along the way, Aaliyah developed a pattern of using breakup threats as her nuclear option whenever we disagreed about anything. Whether I chose to spend Saturday working on my vintage Harley instead of attending her influencer friend's brunch, picked a casual restaurant over the trendy spot she wanted to photograph, or declined to buy expensive concert tickets she would post about for content, every minor disagreement ended the same way. She would cross her arms, tilt her head with that practiced pout, and deliver her signature line, "I can walk away anytime. Boys are begging for me." Then she would pull out her phone and scroll through direct messages filled with fire emojis and over-the-top proposals from men who saw her bikini posts. "See this? Donovan wants to take me to Aspen. Preston is offering dinner at that new steakhouse. Khalil says he would treat me like a queen." The routine was always identical. Show me the messages, wait for me to panic, then graciously allow me to apologize and promise to be more attentive. For 2 years, it worked perfectly. I would feel that familiar knot in my stomach, imagine losing her, and cave immediately. "You are right, babe. Let me cancel my plans." The thing is, I was covering almost all our shared expenses. The $2,800 monthly rent on our loft, utilities averaging $200, groceries that somehow cost $600 monthly because she only bought organic everything, plus her business equipment when her laptop needed replacing or she wanted a better camera. She contributed sporadically when sponsorships came through, maybe $800 here, $1,200 there, but treated it like generous gifts rather than her share of adult responsibilities. I did not mind supporting her dreams, but using her financial dependency on me as leverage to manipulate my behavior was starting to wear thin. Every argument followed the same script. Aaliyah would escalate to threats. I would back down to avoid losing her, and she would get exactly what she wanted while I felt smaller and more controlled. I was walking on eggshells in my own home, constantly calculating whether my choices would trigger another round of boys or begging for me. A quiet resentment was building every time she weaponized other men's attention against my commitment. The worst part was how casual the threats became. Aaliyah would drop, "I can walk away," into conversations about what to watch on television or whether we should order pizza or cook dinner. Every preference became a potential relationship crisis because she had learned that threatening to leave was more effective than actual communication. "Malcolm, you never want to do anything fun anymore. Maybe Preston would appreciate going to that art gallery opening." She said this while I was literally planning a weekend trip she had been wanting to take. Because I suggested we save money by camping instead of staying at the resort, suddenly I was the boring boyfriend who did not deserve her. I began questioning my own judgment. Was I too focused on work? Too practical with money? Too boring for someone with her social media lifestyle? The gaslighting was subtle but effective. She made me feel grateful she stayed rather than proud she chose me. Meanwhile, her followers got to see our relationship through carefully curated posts about date nights I paid for, vacations I funded, and romantic gestures I made, all captioned with inspirational quotes about knowing your worth and never settling. The irony was not lost on me that she was building her personal brand around relationship advice, while privately using emotional manipulation to control mine. But I loved her, or thought I did, and kept telling myself this was just her way of feeling secure. I had no idea how close I was to my breaking point until that Saturday in my garage workshop, when I finally learned what happens when you call someone's bluff instead of folding to their threats. The breaking point came on a Saturday morning when I was finally tackling the engine rebuild on my 1987 Harley Sportster that had been sitting in our building's garage workshop for months. I cleared my entire weekend for this project, ordered all the gaskets, had the cylinders machined, and studied service manuals to make sure I did not mess up the timing. This was not just maintenance. It was therapy. The kind of focused work that cleared my head and reminded me why I became an engineer in the first place. I was 3 hours deep into the teardown, engine parts carefully organized on my workbench, when Aaliyah stormed into the garage wearing a designer outfit that probably cost more than my motorcycle. "Malcolm, what are you doing? I've been texting you for an hour. We need to leave for Brianna's rooftop photo shoot right now." I looked up from the cylinder head I was removing, genuinely confused. "Photo shoot? You never mentioned anything about that. I told you yesterday when you were on your laptop. This is a huge opportunity. Brianna has 50,000 followers, and she is featuring local influencers for this skincare brand collaboration. The lighting is perfect right now, and everyone is already there." She paced around my workspace, careful not to get grease on her white jeans, phone in hand, showing me stories of her friends posing with face masks and champagne glasses. I gestured to the partially disassembled engine. "Aaliyah, I have been planning this rebuild for weeks. I told you I would be working on a bike this weekend. You can go without me." Her expression shifted to that familiar storm cloud look. "Are you serious right now? This is my career. These brand partnerships are how I build my following, and having my boyfriend there shows I am in a stable relationship. That matters for my image. Your image will survive one photo shoot without me. Besides, look at this." I held up a worn gasket. "If I do not replace this seal, the engine is going to leak oil all over the garage floor. This bike has been waiting months for attention." She crossed her arms and delivered the line I had heard countless times before, but with extra venom. "Fine. You know what? I can walk away anytime, Malcolm. Boys are begging for me. Donovan has been asking me to be his +1 to gallery openings. Preston wants to take me to that new rooftop bar downtown. Khalil literally said he would drop everything to make me happy." The familiar knot started forming in my stomach as she pulled out her phone and began scrolling through direct messages. "Look at this. You deserve someone who prioritizes you. Beautiful. Any man who does not worship you is an idiot. Say the word, and I will pick you up in my Tesla Model S right now." For 2 years, this was the moment I would panic. I would imagine losing her, picture her with one of these men, and immediately cave. But something was different this time. Maybe it was the engine oil on my hands grounding me in reality, or the satisfaction of finally working on something tangible instead of navigating an emotional minefield. A strange calm settled over me. I looked up from my tools, made direct eye contact, and said the words that changed everything. "Great. There's the exit." I pointed toward the garage door with a wrench, then went back to carefully removing the next bolt. The silence was deafening. I could feel her staring at me, waiting for the usual scramble to apologize and beg her not to leave. Instead, I continued working methodically, consulting my service manual for the proper torque sequence. "What did you just say?" Her voice rose an octave. The confident manipulation routine had derailed. I said, "There's the exit. You keep telling me you can walk away and boys are begging for you. I'm not stopping you. You are really not going to fight for us, for what we have." The desperation creeping in her voice was something I had never heard before. "Aaliyah, you have threatened to leave me probably 50 times in the past 2 years over restaurant choices, weekend plans, what television shows to watch. I am tired of being held hostage by the constant threat that you might find someone better." I finally looked up from the engine. "If you want to leave, leave. If you want to stay, stop using other men as weapons against me. But I am done negotiating for basic respect." Her face moved through shock, anger, panic, calculation, and back to anger. "Fine, fine. I'll go pack my bags right now. Do not come crawling back when you realize what you lost." She stormed out, heels clicking on concrete, and I heard her car door slam, followed by tires squealing as she pulled out of the parking garage. I stood there, waiting to feel devastated or panicked. Instead, relief swept through me. The garage was quiet again. No drama, no threats, no eggshells, just me, my tools, and a project I cared about. I went back to work on the Harley, and for the next 4 hours, I did not think about Aaliyah once. Instead of chasing after her or sending the usual apologetic texts, I did something unthinkable a week earlier. I silenced her notifications and focused on myself. The first thing I noticed was how much mental energy I'd been wasting on a roller coaster. Without constant arguments simmering in the background, I could concentrate. My supervisor, Derek, even commented on my improved focus during our Monday project review. "Malcolm, whatever you change this weekend, keep it up. This thermal analysis is the cleanest work you have done all quarter," he said. That evening, I sat down and created something I've been avoiding for months: a detailed budget. The numbers were eye-opening. Our shared expenses totaled $4,200 monthly, $2,800 rent, $200 utilities, $600 groceries, $300 for her business subscriptions and equipment maintenance, plus random costs like her gym membership and the premium streaming services she insisted we needed for her content research. Aaliyah's average monthly contribution was maybe $900, and that was on good months when sponsorships came through. Without her expenses, I would save over $800 monthly. Money I could invest in my own goals instead of funding someone else's brand. With that clarity, I enrolled in the Advanced Metallurgy Certification course I had postponed for over a year. That could boost my salary by $15,000 annually. The irony was not lost on me that Aaliyah's exit had freed up both money and mental bandwidth to advance my career. By Wednesday, I was sleeping better than I had in months. No more lying awake wondering if I had said something wrong or strategizing how to avoid triggering another breakup threat. I started using my lunch breaks to reconnect with my workshop buddy, Corey, who had been asking me for months to partner with him on custom motorcycle builds. "Man, where have you been?" Corey said when I finally returned his calls. "I have 3 clients wanting full restorations, and I cannot handle the workload alone. There is serious money in this if we do it right." We spent 2 hours discussing the business potential. Vintage bike restoration was booming in Denver, with collectors willing to pay $5,000 to $15,000 for quality work. Corey had the paint, booth, and fabrication skills. I had the mechanical expertise and attention to detail. It was the kind of passion project I had been too distracted to pursue while managing Aaliyah's drama. Meanwhile, Aaliyah was clearly struggling with my digital silence. She started with passive-aggressive stories, inspirational quotes about toxic people and knowing when to walk away, photos of expensive dinners with vague captions about being treated right. I did not engage, did not like her posts, did not even view them. For someone whose validation came from reactions, my absence was apparently more devastating than any argument we had ever had. By Thursday, the posts grew desperate. One of her crying with mascara streaks, captioned, "Sometimes the people closest to you hurt you the most." Another mirror selfie with "choosing myself for once," and a trail of tear emojis. Then came the nuclear option, a story showing her receiving flowers from someone who actually cares with a close-up of the card sign from your secret admirer. I recognized her handwriting, but I did not bite. She began leaving her phone unlocked on the kitchen counter whenever she came by to grab clothes, positioning it so I could see the flood of direct messages from men responding to her newly single energy. Messages from Donovan, Preston, Khalil, and a dozen others offering dates, gifts, and validation. 2 months earlier, those messages would have sent me into a jealous spiral. Now I just walked past and made coffee, unbothered by her attempts to manufacture jealousy. My routine transformed. I started each morning with a workout instead of scrolling through her social media for clues about her mood. Evenings went to productive projects, the metallurgy coursework, research for the motorcycle business, or simply reading books I had neglected for years. By Friday, exactly 1 week after the garage confrontation, I felt like a different person, calmer, more focused, genuinely excited about my projects. I began to see that what I had mistaken for love might have been addiction to chaos, confusing intensity with connection. The person I was becoming without Aaliyah's manipulation was someone I liked. That realization was more sobering than any of her threats. When my silence stretched into the second week, Aaliyah escalated to full performance mode. Her feed transformed into a highlight reel of expensive dates and luxury experiences, each post designed to trigger maximum jealousy. There were photos from Ruth's Chris Steakhouse with a mysterious male hand across the table, captioned, "Finally being treated like the queen I am." Concert tickets to sold-out shows with when someone actually listens to your music taste, and heart emojis. There was even a photo from inside what looked like a Tesla Model S tag at the city's most expensive shopping district with, "Some men know how to make a woman feel special." She worked overtime to prove that walking away from me was the best decision she had ever made. But the desperation bled through every caption. Comments from our actual friends grew sparse. Meanwhile, Corey and I officially launched our motorcycle restoration business that Wednesday, starting with a 1962 Indian Scout that belonged to a collector in Cherry Hills Village. The owner, Mr. Thompson, was paying us $3,500 to rebuild the engine, restore the original paint scheme, and upgrade the electrical system while maintaining period authenticity. It was exactly the kind of challenging, detail-driven work that reminded me why I loved engineering. "Your attention to detail is impressive," Mr. Thompson said when we showed him our plan. "Most shops rush projects like this, but you clearly respect the craftsmanship these bikes deserve." After months of feeling inadequate because I could not match Aaliyah's expensive tastes, I was finally doing work people valued. Corey and I were already lining up our next 3 projects, including a 1974 Norton Commando with strong profit potential. But Aaliyah was not finished. Thursday evening, she arrived at the apartment with a man she introduced as Preston. Tall, impeccably dressed, he drove a late-model luxury sedan he parked front and center. "I just need to grab a few more things," she announced loudly enough for neighbors to hear, making sure I noticed this was not a solo visit. She spent 20 minutes collecting items she had clearly already moved out, dragging Preston through the apartment while pointing out furniture and decorations like a tour guide. I was in the garage working on the Indian Scout's carburetor when they stopped in the doorway. "This is where Malcolm spends all his time," she said with disdain. "Just tinkering with old junk instead of enjoying life." Preston looked genuinely interested in the motorcycle. "Indian Scout, right? 1962. These are incredible machines. What kind of work are you doing on it?" I explained the restoration process while continuing to work, unbothered by the performance. Preston asked intelligent questions about the engine modifications and seemed genuinely impressed by the quality of our work. Aaliyah's face grew irritated as her date showed more interest in my old junk than in her narrative. "Preston, we should really get going. Our dinner reservation is in 30 minutes. He ignored the cue, examining the bike's frame with appreciation. "You know, I have been looking for someone to restore my grandfather's 1969 Triumph. Would you be interested in another project?" Corey and I exchanged a glance. Another potential client, and a high-value one. "Absolutely," I said. "Here is our card." As they left, I heard Aaliyah trying to explain why Preston should not waste money on my little hobby business, but he was already saving our number. The irony was perfect. Her attempt to make me jealous had delivered a new customer. That weekend, her posts grew frantic. Multiple stories per day featuring different men, expensive restaurants, designer shopping bags, captions about living my best life, and upgrade complete. Even her usual validation sources were losing interest. Meanwhile, I was having the best week I had experienced in months. The Indian Scout project was ahead of schedule. The metallurgy course was fascinating. I had saved enough money in 2 weeks to invest in better tools for the business. Without Aaliyah's financial drain, I could finally see a clear path toward real security and satisfaction. The transformation was remarkable. I felt like I was finally stepping into my own life instead of being pulled along by someone else's performance. The awkward peak came when Aaliyah insisted I attend her parents' 25th anniversary dinner 3 weeks later, clearly planning to use the gathering as a stage for our perfect relationship. Her parents, Denise and Thomas, had always been kind to me, but I sensed something off as soon as we arrived at their suburban home. Aaliyah immediately started directing me into posed photos, trying to recreate couple content that had once made her page glow. "Malcolm, stand behind me with your arms around my waist. Mom, can you take like 20 shots so I can pick the best one?" My new boundaries made it all feel forced. I stood normally instead of performing. The difference was subtle but obvious. I looked like someone tolerating a photo, not enjoying it. During dinner, her mother made an observation that cut through the performance. "Malcolm, you seem different tonight. Distant. Is everything okay with you too?" Before I could answer, Aaliyah launched into a prepared speech about how I had been going through a difficult phase and becoming emotionally unavailable since starting the business. She painted herself as the supportive girlfriend dealing with a partner who had stopped prioritizing their future. He spends all his time in that garage now, working on motorcycles instead of focusing on us. I have been trying so hard to be understanding, but it is like he does not even care about our future together. Her father, Thomas, a successful small business owner, perked up. Motorcycle restoration is specialized. How is the business side going? I explained our project pipeline, profit margins, and plans for expansion. Thomas asked detailed questions about overhead, customer acquisition, and long-term growth. It was clear he understood fundamentals and was impressed by our approach. That sounds like solid entrepreneurship, he said. Building something from the ground up takes dedication. The conversation shifted to financial responsibility, and that is when things turned uncomfortable for Aaliyah. Her mother mentioned how proud they were that their daughters had learned to be self-sufficient, and Thomas asked pointedly about our household arrangements. So, Aaliyah, how are you contributing to the shared expenses? Are you handling the marketing for the business, since that is your expertise? Aaliyah's face flushed. She struggled to explain that she had been focusing on her own brand rather than supporting our shared goals. Well, I have been building my personal brand, which is important for long-term security. Malcolm handles most practical stuff because his engineering salary can cover our basic needs. Silence filled the table. Denise and Thomas exchanged a look that revealed their opinion of that arrangement. Aaliyah's younger sister, Maya, chose that moment to speak up. Wait, are you not dating other people now? I saw your post last week. Dinner with like 3 different guys. Those look like dates, not business meetings. Maya held up her phone, showing one of Aaliyah's more obvious attempts at making me jealous. This guy Preston took you to that expensive steakhouse, right? And what about Donovan and Khalil? Mom, have you seen Aaliyah's page lately? Denise scrolled through Aaliyah's recent posts with growing concern. The expensive dinners, the luxury car photos, the cryptic captions about knowing your worth and upgrades. It painted a very different picture than the committed relationship Aaliyah was trying to present at dinner. Aaliyah, what exactly is going on? Denise asked, using the tone that meant serious trouble. These posts make it look like you are single and dating multiple men, but you brought Malcolm here as your boyfriend. I am very confused about your actual relationship status. Aaliyah tried to explain that the posts were just content creation and networking, but her parents were not buying it. Thomas asked directly whether we were together or broken up, and why she was posting with other men if we were supposedly working things through. The evening unraveled. Aaliyah became defensive as her family realized her persona was either fake or a sign of serious dysfunction. I sat quietly, answering direct questions honestly, but I let Aaliyah talk herself into corners. By dessert, it was clear her tactics did not work when there was an audience who knew her well enough to see through the show. Her parents were disappointed. Maya was openly confused. Aaliyah was furious that her carefully planned validation had backfired. The ride home was silent, except for Aaliyah furiously typing on her phone, likely crafting damage control posts about family drama and being misunderstood. But the real damage was to her credibility. The people who mattered had seen her clearly, and no amount of stories could undo it. After the family dinner disaster, Aaliyah went nuclear. A month of failed manipulation attempts pushed her to a final performance. I came home from work on a Tuesday to find designer suitcases lined up in the living room like an expensive barricade, and Aaliyah positioned on the couch with her phone propped up, clearly live streaming. She had transformed the apartment into a set for her exit, complete with careful lighting and what looked like a script on index cards. Hey everyone, thanks for joining me for this really important live, she said, voice trembling with practiced emotion. I have been getting so many messages asking about my relationship status, and I think it is time to be completely honest about what I've been going through. I stood in the doorway with my work bag, watching her perform for an audience that could not see me yet. She wore a white sundress that photographed well and had positioned the luggage behind her, creating the visual narrative of a strong woman choosing herself. Sometimes you realize you have been settling for someone who does not match your energy, your ambitions, or your vision for the future, she continued, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. It is scary to leave comfort and security, but staying where you are not valued is scarier. The comments poured in. Hearts, you deserve better. Offers for men to treat her right. She fed off the validation, growing more confident with each line. I've been carrying this relationship emotionally and financially for months now, she said. Trying to build something with someone who is more interested in old motorcycles than building a real future together. That is when I walked in a frame, set my keys on the counter, and loosened my tie like any other Tuesday. The shift in her demeanor was instant. From confident performer to startled panic as she realized reality had just stepped into her scene. "Oh, Malcolm is home," she said to the camera, voice uncertain. The comments exploded with curiosity and demands to see my reaction to her announcement. "Need help loading the car?" I asked casually, gesturing toward the suitcases while heading to the refrigerator. No anger, no pleading, no dramatic confrontation, just practical calm. Her face cycled through expressions as she tried to process my lack of devastation. The audience was eating it up, but not the way she expected. Instead of a triumphant escape from a toxic relationship, they were watching a boyfriend react like someone helping a neighbor move furniture. "That is all you have to say?" she asked, voice cracking as her narrative collapsed. "What did you expect me to say, Aaliyah? You have been threatening to leave for months. You have been posting with other men for weeks. You clearly do not want to be here, so I'm not going to beg you to stay somewhere you do not want to be." I started making a sandwich. The live comments grew brutal. People calling out the performance, questioning why her boyfriend seemed unbothered, speculating about what was really happening. "This is not how this was supposed to go," she stammered, the persona gone now. She looked lost, like an actor who had forgotten her lines. "How was it supposed to go?" I asked, leaning on the counter. "You pack your bags, I fall apart, beg you to stay, and you graciously agree to give me another chance if I promise to change. We have done that 50 times. I am finished." The silence stretched uncomfortably long for a live stream. She looked at her phone, probably seeing the comments turning against her, and realized her grand finale had become a public unraveling. She ended the stream abruptly and dissolved into real tears. "Malcolm, please. The other men were just for attention. I do not have anywhere else to go that is as comfortable as this. I know I have been horrible, but I was scared of how serious we were getting. Can we talk?" It was the admission I had suspected, but never heard. She was not leaving because she found something better. She was leaving because she thought the threat would put me back under control. "Aaliyah, here's the thing about threatening to leave. It only works if the other person fears you actually will. You have taught me that I will be fine without you. Better, actually." She tried every tactic: tears, anger, promises to change, claims I was the love of her life. But I had learned to recognize the performance, and my responses stayed calm and consistent. She could stay or go, but the version of us where I begged for respect was over. That night, she packed for real and went to stay with her sister, Maya, sending desperate messages I did not answer. The apartment felt peaceful for the first time in months. I realized that calling her bluff had taught me the difference between love and manipulation. 6 months later, my life had transformed. Corey and I had a 3-month waiting list and had been featured in a Denver lifestyle magazine as craftsmen reviving America's mechanical heritage. The Indian Scout Project led to 12 more restorations, including Preston's grandfather's 1969 Triumph that netted us $6,800 in profit. We expanded from my garage to a proper 2,400 square foot workshop in an industrial district, complete with a paint booth, parts inventory, and a small office where customers could view our portfolio. I completed my metallurgy certification with honors and received a promotion to senior mechanical engineer with a $22,000 salary increase, bringing my annual income to over $110,000. Between my day job and the restoration business, I was earning more than I had imagined while doing work I loved. More importantly, I saved over $8,000 in 6 months without Aaliyah's financial drain, allowing me to invest in better equipment and put a down payment on a small house closer to the workshop. The personal changes were even more significant than the financial ones. I began dating Lauren Mitchell, a fellow engineer who worked in renewable energy systems and shared my passion for precision craftsmanship. She was brilliant, financially independent, and had her own vintage Honda CB750 that she restored herself. Lauren appreciated technical expertise and understood the satisfaction of building something with your hands. We met at a motorcycle show where Corey and I were displaying our award-winning Indian Scout restoration. Our first conversation lasted 3 hours as we discussed engineering principles, vintage bike history, and the joy of solving complex problems. The contrast with Aaliyah could not have been sharper. Lauren insisted on splitting every dinner check, had her own career, and never once threatened to leave when we disagreed about weekend plans. She enjoyed watching me work and would bring coffee to the workshop while I was deep into a challenging restoration. "I love seeing how your mind works through problems," she told me one evening as I troubleshot an electrical issue on a 1973 Norton Commando. "You get this focused intensity that is incredibly attractive." It was the kind of appreciation I had never experienced with Aaliyah, who had viewed my mechanical interests as competition for her attention rather than a core part of who I am. That is why I was genuinely surprised when Aaliyah appeared at the Colorado Classic Motorcycle Show on a sunny Saturday in October. Corey and I had a prominent booth displaying our latest restoration, a 1964 Indian Scout that had taken 4 months and represented our finest work to date. The bike was stunning, period-correct paint, a rebuilt engine producing 35% more horsepower than the original specifications, and custom leatherwork that matched the vintage aesthetic. We had already fielded inquiries from 6 potential customers and been approached by a journalist about featuring our work. I was explaining our restoration philosophy to a collector when I saw her approaching through the crowd. Aaliyah looked different, less filtered, more grounded, wearing jeans and a simple blouse instead of the designer outfits she once insisted were necessary. Her hair was shorter, more practical, and she was not constantly checking her phone. She waited until I finished speaking before approaching. "Malcolm, I hope it is okay that I came over," she said softly. "I saw the magazine article about your business and wanted to congratulate you. This bike is incredible." "Thanks, Aaliyah," I said. "Corey and I have been working hard to build something meaningful." I gestured toward my business partner, who was discussing pricing with another customer. "How have you been?" "Better, actually," she said. "I got a job as marketing coordinator for a tech startup downtown. It is challenging work, and I am learning real professional skills instead of chasing metrics." She looked around at our booth with what seemed like genuine admiration. "I owe you an apology, Malcolm. A real one. Losing you was the wake-up call I needed to grow up and take responsibility." Before I could respond, Lauren appeared at my side with 2 cups of coffee, wearing her leather jacket over a vintage band shirt. She looked effortlessly confident in the way that comes from substance rather than performance. "Hey, thought you might need caffeine," she said, kissing my cheek before noticing Aaliyah. "Oh, sorry to interrupt. Lauren, this is Aaliyah, my ex-girlfriend." "Aaliyah, this is Lauren." Lauren extended her hand with a warm smile. "Nice to meet you, Aaliyah. Malcolm mentioned you two had some good times before things ended." "All the good times were because of him," Aaliyah said, shaking Lauren's hand with sincerity. "I was too immature to appreciate what I had. You were lucky to have found him." They chatted briefly about the show and restoration work. I watched Aaliyah's face as Lauren described her own engineering background and her vintage Honda project. There was no competitiveness, just respect for someone who clearly shared my interests and values. "I should let you get back to your customers," Aaliyah said finally. "Malcolm, I am genuinely happy for you. You deserve someone who appreciates all the things that make you special. I am sorry it took me so long to understand that." As she walked away, Lauren squeezed my hand. "She seems like she has learned a lot." That must feel good, knowing she finally understands what she lost. I watched Aaliyah disappear into the crowd, no longer the manipulative, entitled person who weaponized threats, but someone who had done some real work on herself. "It does feel good," I said. "But honestly, I am just grateful she helped me learn what I actually deserve." That evening, Laura and I celebrated landing 3 new restoration contracts by cooking dinner at my house, working side by side in comfortable rhythm and easy conversation about our days. As we cleaned up together, something Aaliyah never once volunteered to do, I thought about what calling someone's bluff had taught me. The right person does not use love as leverage or stage exits to win arguments. They stay and work through problems, building something stronger than either could create alone. Sometimes the best response to "I can walk away" is simply holding the door open and discovering that the person worth keeping would never use that threat in the first place. If you enjoyed this story, please like, comment, and share this video with your friends. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a powerful story drop.